My daughter-in-law told me straight to my face, "There's no money. You stay home." I smiled like it didn't bother me at all. All right. But by the time their cruise ship pulled away from the dock the next morning, I was already on the upper deck with a cup of hot coffee in my hands. Derek spotted me first. His face twisted, voice cracking with outrage. "Are you following us? Mom, what is wrong with you? Go home." Before I could answer, the ship's captain stepped beside me, placed a respectful hand on my shoulder, and said something that made them both go pale, and kneel. Friends, before we dive into this story, do me one tiny favor: subscribe, tap that like button, and tell us in the comments which city you're listening from. Your support keeps these stories alive. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe. We post one every day. The night before all this, the kitchen in my little carriage house smelled of sautéed onions and peppers, the scent that always reminded me of the years when life felt fuller, when every chair at the table had someone laughing in it. I flipped the patties in the skillet and tried not to think about how I'd probably eat alone again. My world had shrunk to the small guest cottage behind the grand house I built with my late husband, long before time thinned my hair and softened my voice. 10 years ago, deep in grief and wanting to keep the family strong, I signed almost everything over to my son. "You're the man of the family now," I told Derek, wanting to give him pride and responsibility. Instead, I watched him grow into a man who obeyed every whim Savannah breathed onto the air. The back door creaked open. A cold gust slipped in with them. Derek wouldn't look at me, fiddling with a button on his jacket, while Savannah wore the face of someone rehearsing for a tragedy she desperately wanted applause for. She tossed her coat onto a chair like it offended her. "Marilyn, we have a situation," she announced, her voice sweet but fake as a plastic flower. I nodded slowly. A week earlier, I had drained nearly all of my savings, the money I planned to be buried with, and handed them $15,000 to fix a leak in the east wing. They'd claimed the house would rot without immediate repairs. Savannah pressed a hand dramatically to her chest. The estimate went up. "There's mold, wood rot, disaster, really. We even had to use our own savings." "And where is this going?" I asked, turning off the stove. "We can't take you on the cruise." She said it fast, like ripping off tape. "There's just no money left for your ticket." Derek whispered, "Sorry, Mom. It's better if you stay behind. Watch the workers. We'll bring you something nice." Savannah nodded, already relieved. "Yes. Someone needs to guard the house. And we really need this break." Her sleeve slipped as she tucked her hair, revealing a diamond tennis bracelet. Not costume. I knew the design. I knew the jeweler. I knew the price. It gleamed like a slap across the face. I didn't let it show. "All right," I said calmly. "If there's no money, there's no money." They left in a hurry, excited now that the performance was over. Later that night, I carried the trash to the big bin by the gate. A crumpled wad of thick paper rolled out and bumped against my shoe. Something about the weight of it made me unfold it instead of tossing it back. Under the dim street lamp, the words were clear. Invoice. Apex Voyages. Reservation, Grand Owner's Suite, Gilded Magnolia River Cruise. Paid by, Derek Collins. Amount, $15,000. Exactly what I had given them. They weren't repairing anything. There was no mold. There was no crisis. They had used my life's last savings to buy themselves luxury, and left me in the dark to watch the garden. My heart didn't ache. It steadied. Strength returned to me like an old engine warming after a long winter. They had forgotten who I was before I let my hair go silver and started baking pies for Sunday dinners. I folded the invoice neatly, placed it in my cardigan pocket, and began planning, quietly, carefully, the moment they would learn what happens when you betray the wrong woman. And that moment arrived the second the captain greeted me on that ship. I returned to the carriage house, locked the door behind me, and went straight to the bedroom. From the bottom drawer of my dresser, beneath folded linen tablecloths no one had touched in years, I pulled out a vintage leather agenda. The scent of old leather and thick archival paper rose like a ghost from another era. Inside, on the very first page, sat a single number written in my old executive handwriting. A number I had not called in 12 years. I picked up the phone. It rang and rang, no surprise. It wasn't a line people dialed anymore. Except me. Finally, a rough male voice broke through. "Who's calling on this number?" "Hello, Cyril," I said, my tone cold enough to cut glass. "It's Marilyn. I need to activate my executive override. And I need a stateroom on the Gilded Magnolia immediately." Silence poured into the line. Heavy, startled, respectful. "Yes," I continued. "It's me. Don't ask questions. Just follow instructions. First, I need the current ownership structure of Riverstream Holdings." A minute later, in the dim glow of my bedroom lamp, I heard keys clacking, files being opened, and then Cyril's breath catching. "Marilyn, the Gilded Magnolia is still under Riverstream. It's one of the subsidiaries tied to your silent shares." I smiled. For the first time in 2 days, the smile was real. Warm. Sharp. Satisfied. I wasn't asking for a favor. I was reclaiming what had always been mine. The next 48 hours slid into a rhythm my body remembered better than my heart. Cold precision. Controlled breathing. No emotion, just calculation. While Derek and Savannah scurried around the big house, arguing about luggage and outfits, I shut myself in the bathroom with the shower running and made calls. My attorney, Samuel Pierce, answered with a groan. "Marilyn. It's 3 a.m. "It's urgent," I said. He tried to talk me off the ledge, briefly. Once I explained the situation, he chuckled. "Ah. You're back in the game. All right. I'll draw up temporary operational control documents. Captain Harrington will be notified." I remembered Harrington when he was just a young officer, honest, disciplined, and terrified of me. Perfect. Between calls, I packed. From the back of the closet, I unlocked the cedar wardrobe with the small brass key I wore beside my cross. Inside hung the clothes of the woman I used to be before motherhood and grief softened my edges: sharp suits, fine fabrics, silent status. I chose a cream linen pantsuit, its tailoring crisp even after years of waiting. I added a silk scarf in warm golds and reds. No threadbare cardigans. No house shoes. Not today. War required armor. Morning arrived in a storm of chaos at the main house. Savannah screamed about a missing makeup bag. Derek hustled around like a man trying to outrun his wife's temper. I stepped out wearing my usual gray raincoat to mask what was beneath, holding a battered old travel bag as a prop. "Derek!" I called. He spun, frazzled. "Mom, we're late." "What now?" "I won't be staying home," I said. "I'm going to visit Sister Louise. She needs help with her back. I'll be gone a week, same as you too." Savannah leaned out the window, sunglasses already on her nose. "Perfect," she said. "Make sure the neighbor has the spare key." "All right, Derek, drive." They didn't hug me. Didn't look twice. The SUV screeched out of the driveway like they were escaping something. They were. They just didn't know it. When their taillights disappeared, the world fell blessedly quiet. Exactly 30 minutes later, a sleek black sedan rolled to a stop at my gate. The chauffeur stepped out, tipped his cap, and opened the door for me. "Mrs. Grant, Captain Harrington is expecting you." I slid into the back seat, let the raincoat fall, adjusted my scarf, and met my own gaze in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't someone to be tricked or discarded. The woman staring back was in charge. The drive to the New Orleans port took an hour. The car slipped through traffic with the ease of someone who owned the road. We bypassed the long, miserable boarding line, families sweating, children whining, travelers arguing. My car didn't even pause. We pulled into a restricted gate marked authorized personnel only. The guard recognized the plate instantly and lifted the barrier. Straight to the private dock. I spotted Derek and Savannah behind a chain-link fence, struggling with luggage, fanning themselves, arguing with a porter who clearly wished he were anywhere else. Their clothes, their attitude, their desperation, it all looked cheap now. Cheap and stolen. My driver opened the door. The humid river breeze wrapped around me as two young crewmen rushed forward. "Mrs. Grant," one said, bowing slightly. "Your suite is prepared. Please allow us." I didn't bother looking back at the fence. I walked up the gangway with steady steps, the shadow of my limousine stretching long and dark over the people who had tried to steal my life. Inside the owner's suite, my suite, the silence was perfect. I pressed a button on the wall monitor connected to the ship's internal cameras. The screen split into feeds. And there they were. Derek and Savannah, stepping onto the hallway carpet, looking around in awe, completely unaware that everything they thought they'd stolen was already slipping out of their hands. Derek dragged the bags, puffing but grinning, while Savannah floated ahead, fingertips brushing along the gleaming brass handrails. They paused at the door to stateroom 404, the Diamond Suite, the one I had secretly reserved, under the guise of a roof repair fund. They stepped inside, and I switched my monitor to the interior feed. Every suite had discrete ceiling cameras, meant for security and dispute resolution. The audio was crystal clear. "Oh my God, Derek," Savannah squealed, tossing her purse onto the crisp white bed. "Look at this balcony. Look at this bathroom." She spun in delight, her magenta dress a blur against the neutral walls. Derek, wiping sweat from his brow, sank into a velvet armchair, spreading out with a pleased grin. "Was it worth it?" he asked, adoring his wife. "You bet," she replied, running to the welcome bottle of champagne chilled in ice. The cork popped like a pistol shot through my cabin speakers. Derek poured carefully, foam spilling over the flutes, but they didn't notice. "To us." Savannah toasted. "To freedom, finally." They clinked glasses. Derek chuckled. I felt awkward leaving her at home with that old grocery bag. Savannah laughed and mimicked me, hunched over, voice brittle and pathetic. "Oh, children, go on ahead. I'll stay here with the cats. Guard the house. Save a penny." They collapsed into laughter. "She actually believes we're broke. Can you imagine?" Derek said. I stared at the monitor, coffee in hand. My heart didn't race, only disgust pulsed through me, like watching ants crawl over sugar. Savannah downed her champagne in one gulp. "Let's go." "The restaurant." "They say the chef's French, he needs to learn respect immediately." The door slammed behind them. In the hallway, I watched Savannah snap her fingers at a passing maid, commanding her cart out of the way. I picked up the internal phone, dialed a short number. "Captain Harrington," I said. "Yes, Mrs. Grant." His voice was crisp, precise. "The guests from 404 have left the suite. Initiate Phase 2. Pack their belongings without extra ceremony and block their keycards." "Understood. Keys for their reassignment are ready." I leaned back, sipping espresso. The show had begun. An hour passed. The sun dipped low, golden over the Mississippi. The gilded magnolia honked and glided away from the dock. Derek and Savannah, judging by the cameras, were berating a bartender mid-deck, demanding his cocktails meet their imagined standards. Returning to their suite, flushed and triumphant, Derek swiped his card. Red. He tried again. Red. What's wrong? Savannah demanded. I need to use the bathroom, he muttered, frustrated. At that moment, a steward emerged from the corridor, tall, straight-backed, expression unreadable. Problems with the cards? He asked politely. Open this door now. Savannah barked. I apologize, Mrs. Grant. An administrative adjustment occurred. This suite is now reserved under priority shareholder status. Your belongings have been reassigned to a stateroom matching your confirmed loyalty. They stared, dumbfounded. Where? Savannah demanded, snatching the brass-tagged keys. Lower deck, stern sector, near engineering, Elias Monroe said calmly. Savannah shrieked. You can't. We paid for this. Derek panted, where's the manager? The captain. The administration office is on the sun deck, VIP zone, Elias replied evenly. Decision is final. She flung the keys at Derek. Let's go. We're tearing this place apart. They stomped toward the stairs to the upper deck, rage radiating from every step. I remained seated on the VIP sun deck, espresso in hand, a volume of French poetry open. The footsteps grew louder, anger and entitlement charging like a storm, but I didn't flinch. I turned the page slowly, savoring the rustle of thick paper, and brought the cup to my lips. They were about to discover that some battles are best lost. And some queens always sit quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to claim their crown. At first, they saw only a silhouette. A woman in a pristine white linen suit, wide-brimmed hat shading her face, dark sunglasses concealing half her expression. She radiated calm authority and that slow, unshakable confidence only wealth and years can teach. Savannah took a step forward, mouth opening to shout, but the words died in her throat. She squinted, trying to pierce the shadow. Slowly, I lifted my glasses, letting my gaze meet theirs. Silence stretched across the deck, heavier than any scream. Mom, Derek breathed, jaw slack, face slackened like a fish out of water. Savannah's face shifted from pale to angry, crimson spots blooming along her neck. You, she hissed, disbelief and fury tangled in her voice. What are you doing here? I placed my glasses neatly on the table beside my book and checked my watch. Drinking coffee, enjoying the view, until you came and ruined it with your shouting. Derek stepped forward, fists clenched, aggression poorly hiding his fear. Are you stalking us? He barked, spittle flecking the air. You've lost your mind, old woman. Get out. How did you even get here? On whose dime? It's our money, Savannah sputtered, realization cracking through her fury. She lunged toward the table, fingers clawing at my jacket. Before she could touch me, a deep, resonant voice cut across the deck like a ship's horn. Remove your hands. Savannah recoiled as if struck. Derek froze, his shoulders slumping. From the bridge doors, Captain Thorne appeared in full dress uniform, gold stripes gleaming, cap perfectly aligned. Behind him, two broad-shouldered security officers. He walked past Derek without a glance, standing between me and Savannah, shadow stretching across her like a wall. Hands off the owner of this vessel, he intoned, contempt clear in every word. Derek blinked, trying to process the command. Owner, he stammered, voice cracking. Captain, you must be mistaken. This is my mother, Derek added weakly, pointing. She's just a retiree, Savannah piped up. She lives in a cottage. All she has is tea money. Captain Thorne's icy gaze snapped to Derek. Mr. Grant, he said slowly. Allow me to clarify. Marilyn Grant holds controlling interest in Riverstream Holdings. She owns this company, the port behind you, and this vessel from keel to stack. Derek swayed. He looked at me, then Thorne, then back at me. The illusion of control shattered in his eyes. She gave everything to us, Savannah whispered, clutching the back of a chair. Thorne's voice cut through like steel. Technically, you are not guests here. You are uninvited trespassers who have committed an act of aggression in a private area. The weight of it sank in. They hadn't just misjudged me, they had stolen $15,000 from someone worth millions. Mom, Derek wheezed, collapsing to his knees on the teak decking. Savannah slumped beside him, mouth opening and closing like a stunned fish. Their arrogance had dissolved, leaving only terror. I stirred my coffee gently, unhurried. Captain, I said, calm as the river beneath the ship. The coffee's getting cold. Take them out of my sight. We'll discuss the route later. The officers lifted them like sacks of grain. Derek mumbled incoherently. Savannah had gone rigid, frozen in shock. They weren't being ejected, yet. Captain Thorne knew a better punishment awaited, uncertainty in a confined space. They were escorted to cabin 012, directly above the propeller shaft, no portholes, constant vibration, a perfect place for reflection. All day, I remained silent, imagining Savannah pacing, hissing at Derek, inventing excuses. We only borrowed it. We'd have returned it. Surely she'll forgive. By 8 p.m., I sent a steward with a thick cream envelope embossed in gold, an invitation to dinner in the private Romanoff room. At 8:30 p.m., I arrived early. The space was intimate, designed for high-level negotiations, oak-paneled walls, dim sconce lighting, dark emerald velvet drapes. I took the head of the table. Before me lay baked trout and a glass of dry Riesling. The doors opened. Derek and Savannah entered hesitantly. Savannah had swapped into a black cocktail dress, seeking pity points. Derek's blazer looked crumpled and small on him, like a child called to the principal's office, hope flickering dimly in their eyes. Mom, Derek began, stepping cautiously toward the table. Sit, I said, pointing to the chairs opposite me. They obeyed. Savannah pasted on a trembling smile, tearing at a napkin. Marilyn, she cooed. What a terrible misunderstanding today. We were shocked. You understand, right? It's all the renovation, the stress, we only wanted the best. We didn't mean to worry you. I continued cutting my fish in silence. The clink of silverware on porcelain filled the room, the only sound amidst their crumbling composure. They waited for menus, for wine, for any sign of dinner, but the table remained bare. No silverware, no glasses, only the polished wood and a thick gray folder set deliberately in the center. Where's our meal? Derek asked, unease creeping into his voice. You will not be served, I said calmly, setting my fork down and dabbing at my lips. My gaze locked on him, no warmth, only exhaustion and quiet judgment. Have you eaten, Derek? You've been feeding at my expense for 5 years. I imagine you are well satisfied. What do you mean? He tried to feign ignorance, eyes flicking to the folder. I reached forward and nudged it slowly across the table. Open it. Derek flipped the cover with shaking hands. Savannah leaned forward, peering at the pages. The first sheet was a spreadsheet, columns of numbers, dates, notes in red ink. That's not a cruise bill, I said, taking a deliberate sip of wine. It's a forensic audit, every cent in my accounts, and every account I allowed you access to under power of attorney. Derek's face drained of color. Savannah swallowed hard, her throat bobbing. Did you think I didn't notice? My voice was low, sharp as a blade. I turned the pages in my mind as they scanned them. Prescriptions, $400 withdrawn, $1,500 charged, groceries, bags of oatmeal and milk logged, thousands written off, gas for his SUV taken from my pension. And the roof repair, the final act, $15,000, stolen while spinning tales of rot and mold, my last savings for a rainy day. But, we intended to return it, Savannah whimpered. Derek's office, the bills, we barely got by. I slammed my palm on the table. The crack of wood startled them. No, Derek. My tone softened, but the threat was sharper than any scream. I was patient. I hoped your conscience would wake. I hoped you'd remember who bought your house, who paid for your education. But you are insatiable. I nodded toward the folder. Check the last page. Eyes wide, they read the bank notice, powers of attorney revoked, all linked cards blocked, joint accounts frozen pending investigation into embezzlement. Embezzlement? Derek stammered, horror overtaking him. You have no funds, I said, voice even. Credit limits nulled by my authority as controlling partner of the bank. Not a cent. Not even for water. Savannah leapt up, chair clattering to the floor. You can't do this. We are family. How will we survive? I pressed the call button. Dinner is concluded. You are dismissed. Go to your cabin. Sleep is needed. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. The head of security appeared silently. Hunched, clutching the folder of their shame, they were guided toward the lower decks. Alone, I remained in the light, the bitter taste of victory lingering like ash on the tongue. Morning arrived with a thick fog rolling over the river. I sat in the glass-enclosed veranda of the upper deck, palms and orchids creating a tropical illusion amidst autumn's chill. Steam rose from my herbal tea, warming my hands, as the riverboat cut through gray water. Below, in cabin 012, chaos reigned, shrieks, pacing, blaming, a storm of confinement and reflection. Stripped of money, status, and certainty, Derek and Savannah turned on each other like caged animals. A soft creak announced a visitor. I did not turn, continuing to watch the bow slice the mist. Marilyn, a quiet, trembling voice, soaked with tears. I set the cup on the saucer, the clink sounded impossibly loud. Savannah stood at the entrance, transformed. Her posture collapsed, the predatory gleam gone, hair loosely pinned, face bare and red from weeping. She wrung her hands nervously, a schoolgirl caught confessing to breaking a window. May I? She whispered. I gestured to the wicker chair opposite me. Sit, Savannah. She perched on the edge, hunched, small, fragile. I couldn't sleep, she began. A single tear traced down her cheek. Derek had erupted yesterday, screaming, blaming me for everything. She covered her face, sobbing. I didn't know, she said, voice breaking. I didn't understand the scale. Derek said it was his money, bonuses, deals that went well. I believed him. He forced me to live a life of appearances. To keep up. I just wanted to be a good wife. And now you see me as a monster. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I love you, Mom. I always wanted us to be a real family. But Derek, he turned me against you. He lied. The roof story, he laughed, saying, you wouldn't understand anyway. I lifted the teapot and poured her a cup. Steam curled, fragrant with herbs and deception. Drink, I said evenly. Your throat must be dry from all the words. Savannah grasped the cup with both hands, clinging to it like a drowning woman grasping a lifeline. Thank you, you're too good to me, Marilyn, Savannah whispered, eyes glistening. I don't deserve this. I just want you to know. I'm leaving him. The moment we return, I'll file for divorce. I can't stay with a liar and a thief. I'll work, I'll repay every cent, just please, don't cut me out of your life. Give me a chance to make it right. Her gaze was earnest, almost touching my heart. If I hadn't known her as long as I had, I might have believed it. But experience lent me clarity. Her performance was flawless, the wronged, repentant spouse. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the warmth settle. "You're quite convincing, Savannah," I said evenly, letting a faint trace of admiration slip in. "Derek, he really is weak. Easily molded, like clay in another's hands." Savannah's face brightened. She had swallowed the bait. "Yes, exactly. I fell under his influence. But, there's one detail." I set my cup down and picked up the tablet resting next to a bowl of biscuits. "This vessel is outfitted with modern security systems, particularly in the lower decks, engine rooms and crew quarters. The area you currently occupy is monitored continuously." Savannah froze. The hope evaporated from her expression, replaced by dread. I swiped the screen, opening a file. The silence of the greenhouse shattered with a shrill, familiar voice. Savannah's voice, but the real one, caught in last night's recording. "You incompetent fool, Derek. You couldn't even lie right." Derek's defensive, pitiful voice followed. "Savannah, keep it down. Someone might hear." "I don't care," she screamed in the recording. "As soon as we dock, lawyers will act. She's senile, she doesn't understand. That old woman is dangerous. We'll lock her away in a state-run facility, sell her house, take what's ours." I hit pause. The words, "old woman," echoed across the glass walls. Savannah went pale. The blood drained from her face, her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Every plea about love, sacrifice, and tyranny dissolved instantly. I watched her, fatigue in my eyes, not anger. "Nursing home?" I asked softly. "State-run, cheapest one." She shook her head violently, stumbling backward. The chair scraped across the floor. "No. I didn't mean it. You never wanted a mother-in-law," I interrupted, closing the tablet. "You didn't want a family. You wanted a sponsor. A wallet on legs, living too long. Sponsorship cancelled." I stood. Savannah pressed into the chair as if bracing for a blow. "Return to your husband. Enjoy each other's company. You have little time left before arrival." I turned to the window, ending the audience. Outside, gold-tinged forests drifted by. My reflection stared back, calm, resolute, finally free. Less than an hour later, the quiet of my library shattered. Doors slammed open, nearly dislodging their hinges. A frantic procession entered. At the front, Savannah dragged a man in a white coat by the sleeve. Her face, recently tear-streaked, now twisted with manic determination. "Doctor! Faster!" she shrieked. The man struggled to free his arm. "She's dangerous to herself, to others." "Ma'am, calm yourself," he said, voice weary but firm. "You cannot barge into the VIP quarters." Derek gasped, trying to intervene. "She has acute psychosis. Delirium. She claims she owns this ship." Savannah jabbed a trembling finger at me. "Look at her. Sitting like a queen, shuffling papers. Dementia. Delusions. She stole from us, locked us below decks. Administer something, sedative, haloperidol, anything to stop her." I placed my glasses atop my report, unhurried. Their strategy was fragile and transparent. Intimidate, coerce, declare me incompetent, one final gamble to seize control. "Alan, doctor, document her state immediately." Savannah barked, frantic. "We need a medical report for guardianship. Protect her assets before she gives them away in a fit." The doctor freed his sleeve from her grip, adjusted his coat, stethoscope straightened, and stepped forward. Derek leaned toward him, hope flickering. "Ask her. Ask whose ship this is. You'll see for yourself. The doctor sighed, removed thin-rimmed glasses, wiped them carefully, and finally met my gaze. A spark of amusement danced behind professional restraint. "Good afternoon, Madam Grant," he said softly. "How is your blood pressure today?" The silence was deafening. Savannah froze, mouth open. Derek blinked, stunned. "Good afternoon, Dr. Beauchamp," I replied, a faint smile at the corner of my lips. "Pressure is normal. 120/80. The river air does wonders, though some passengers make far too much noise." The doctor turned to them, his softness gone. Ice replaced warmth. "Young people," he said, voice cutting. "I have been Marilyn Grant's personal physician for 22 years. I oversaw her recovery after her husband's stroke. I monitor her cardiology, and I have never doubted her clarity." Savannah and Derek wilted beneath his gaze, the pretense of authority collapsing. Their last attempt to wrest control of my life had failed utterly. "I know every scar, every habit, every neuron of hers," Dr. Beauchamp said, taking a step toward Derek. Derek stumbled back, knocking into the bookcase. "You claim your mother is senile," the doctor continued, voice calm yet ringing with authority. "Curious. Her last MRI showed cerebral vessels in better condition than both of yours, judging by the idiocy displayed here. Her mind is sharper than any captain's on this river. But your hysteria, that suggests a psychiatric evaluation, for you." Savannah pressed her palms to her face, sliding down the door frame. "But, we didn't know." "Didn't know?" I interrupted, voice quiet, unflinching. "You never cared. For 20 years, Dr. Beauchamp visited our home monthly. Did you ever notice whose car was at the gate? Did you ask what medications I took? No. You only saw yourselves." Dr. Beauchamp pulled a notepad from his coat, scribbled quickly, tore out the sheet, and handed it to Derek. "What is this?" Derek asked blankly. "That," said the doctor with faint courtesy, "is a bill for a false emergency call after hours, requiring a senior specialist consultation on mental health. The patient's mental health is perfect. My time, however, is costly." Derek's face paled as he read the number. $500, he muttered. We have no money." "Not my concern," Dr. Beauchamp replied, shrugging. "It will be added to your cabin account. Failure to pay before docking will result in explanation to local authorities." He winked at me, then turned and left, closing the library door softly. I was alone with them again. Two broken shadows, dwarfed by the luxury they had once sought, now rejected. "Leave," I said, sliding my glasses back on and returning to the report, closing the door behind them. Derek pulled Savannah up by the arm. She walked like a ghost, staring blankly forward. They left. The lock clicked, final and absolute. I watched the shore approach, gnarled cypress trees, a weathered landing, the end of their route and the beginning of mine. The riverboat trembled, shoving against the rubber bumpers. Engines quieted, replaced by wind through the willows and crows circling above the deserted levee. Cottonwood Point, remote, hauntingly beautiful, far from the city and its distractions. I stood at the lower deck exit, wrapped in camel hair, scarf fluttering. Beside me, arms crossed, stood the head of security. Derek and Savannah appeared moments later, pathetic shadows of their former arrogance, rumpled, twitchy, eyes hollow with the last scraps of hope. "Mama," Derek began, an uncertain, almost pleading smile. "We're here, you've forgiven us." "An excursion." Savannah remained silent, staring at the open gangway. "This is your stop," I said flatly. "Step off." Derek forced a nod, attempting false cheer. "Air, walk, good for Savannah, jackets." The head of security's voice struck like a hammer. Mr. Grant, Mrs. Grant, exit. Now. They froze. Autumn wind cut across their faces, but they barely noticed. What do you mean, exit? Savannah whispered. I nodded toward the gangway. Step off. You are expected. Heavily guided by security, they descended onto the gangway. Every step uncertain, hesitant, eyes searching for a laugh, a joke, none came. Their feet hit damp, cracked concrete. Before them lay their luggage, for large plastic cases they had proudly hauled from New Orleans. Beside them, a folder, unpaid doctor's bill and eviction notice. Derek froze, glancing between the cases and the empty levee. No taxis, no buses, only a stray dog sniffing a bollard. Then up to me, leaning on the railing. Mama, he screamed, voice cracking. What does this mean? You're leaving us here. Savannah clutched her suitcase like a lifeline. You can't. This is the middle of nowhere. No money. How will we survive? I looked down from the railing. Small. Insignificant. Not predators, just insects scuttling in the dirt. Wind whipped my hair, yet I felt warm. You told me before, my voice carried, sharp and clear, amplified over the river, no money. Stay home. You said you couldn't afford a ticket for me. I paused, letting it settle. Well, now you have no money, and your journey ends here. Derek rushed forward, but the gangway was already lifting. Metal groaned, tearing away from the dock. Forgive us. We'll repay everything. Don't leave us. We'll die. You're young, strong, I answered evenly. Hands, feet. Find work, hitch a ride. You always claim to be self-made. Here is your chance, without my money. The gangway locked. Engines roared, churning the river into foam. Stop. Stop, you old witch. Savannah shrieked, flinging a shoe that splashed uselessly into the water. I didn't move. Their screams shrank into the distance, swallowed by the wind and water. On the empty pier, two tiny figures, stranded, possessions in disarray, pennies in non-existent pockets. I turned away, past now behind them. Captain Harrington approached, tipping his cap. Course for New Orleans, Madam Grant, back on schedule. I looked forward, where the river widened into the horizon, sunlight piercing the clouds. No, Captain, I said, lips twitching with the smallest hint of satisfaction. To hell with the itinerary, I said, drawing in a deep, crisp breath. The air smelled of autumn leaves and river water. Set course north, Emmerich. All the way to Minnesota, straight to the headwaters. The first mate blinked, surprised, but a glimmer of excitement lit his eyes. 2 more weeks on the river. Plenty of time. What brings us there? He asked cautiously. I've always wanted to see the upper Mississippi in fall, I replied. They say the maples paint the riverbanks like molten fire. I've waited 30 years, first for work, then marriage, then family obligations. Too many reasons to put it off. Not anymore. A warmth bloomed inside me, a long-suppressed, joyous heat. It wasn't a chuckle, not a quiet smirk. I threw my head back and laughed, loud, pure, unrestrained, a laugh that leapt across the water, startling the gulls overhead. I laughed at the blindness of my past, at the greed I had endured, at the absurdity of the years. I laughed from liberation. I had wealth, a vessel, and the river stretching endlessly ahead. My life wasn't closing, it was opening, wide and uncharted. I hope you enjoyed this journey. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to support more stories like this, you can send a super thanks, it keeps these tales flowing. On screen, you'll see a couple more life stories I recommend, there's so much more to explore. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story. With warmth, gratitude, and respect.